Likkutei Torah, Parshas Matos, page 172, in middle of the first column. Okay, last thing that Rabbi was explaining was you're making peace between Pamayah Shamayel and Pamayah Shamata, between the heavenly spheres and the earthly spheres. So he says the higher spheres is a level of Yudkei, Chachma, and Bina, between Chesed and Gvura up there, and down here is Vav Hey, that's between the Midas and the other levels down here. See, now the Alter Rebbe explains that in the Nefesh HaAdam there's also these two levels that you need to make peace between. So in the person down here, you have the Moyach, intelligence, which is cold and moist, wet. And then you have the heart, which is warm and hot. So he says, and he starts explaining each one, the difference between Moyach basically is a level of Yira, because Yira is bittul and cold, and Ava is a level of the heart, because that's very strong and powerful. So he says like this, a little bit past midway of on the first column, 172. But the advantage of the heart over the mind is Yishom Yiseido Eish V'Atzimoyin. There's a level of Ava, like a burning fire, and that comes from the level of Bina. Because again, when you understand something, so then you enjoy it, then you love it. If you don't understand it, like Chacham is Kabbalah Seil, so then you don't have the enjoyment of it. You don't have Ava to it. Kabbalah Seil, there's no Ava, because there's nothing to love. You don't understand it. You're doing it because Hashem said so. And that the of the midah is the level of Ava. Okay? So he says, just like in spiritual realms, there's Yud-Kei and Vav-Kei, and you have to make peace between Chachma and Bina, which are opposites. And Vav-Hei, Midas and Malchus, which are giver and receiver, also opposites. So in the Nefesh HaAdam, you need to make peace between the level of intellect and Midas, which is a level of coldness, krirus, which is yira, by the way, bittul, and the level of ava. And he says, this is what the pasuk says, Keini Shemayim b'tzvuna. Hashem establishes the heaven with tvuna, with bina. Shemayim mechinas eish. Shemayim is the level of eish that comes from the level of tvuna. Rashi says at the beginning of Chumash that what Shemayim, Rashi says, is two words, eish and mayim. The Aleph is whatever. But Shemayim, Rashi says at the beginning of Chumash, is Eish and Mayim, because how did Eibishter make Shemayim? By combining fire and water, which is seemingly really two opposites. So he says by the person, that's what the pasuk says. Kain and Shemayim betvuna, Shemayim is Eish, Shenim Shemchin is tvuna, comes from Bina. And from there comes the level, what's positive level of Eish? In the beginning of Tanya Perek Aleph, the Alter Rebbe explains the level of evil of fire is haughtiness and anger, and that's the boasting and not boasting. Gaiva, kasa gaiva, Niseido Eish. And he says, what's the positive aspect of it? So the pasuk says by Mashiach, Vayigva libe bedarche Hashem. About Mashiach, the pasuk says his heart was high, bedarche Hashem. Or as the pasuk says in Tehillim, Vesalcha berachava, we go with a breitkeit, with a broadness to it. In other words, that is like the fire of Kedusha is doing things, not caring what anybody says about it, doing because Hashem wants you to do it. That's also a form of not gaiva in the negative way, but like it says by Mashiach, Vayigva libe b'darech Hashem. It's a level of power and might and realization of doing what Hashem wants us to do.
Zealousness, Rabbi, also?
What?
Zealousness, like by arm.
No.
Like by
No. There has to be both levels of Mayach Valev. By Yidin, why did Hashem make the mind and the heart? Why did he make two separate things? Because you need both Avedas. You need Aved of intellect, which is cold, and you need Aved of the heart, which is Midas, which is warm.
Why do we have to make a peace between the two? What is
Because the whole concept of Torah and mitzvahs is to make peace. The Rambam says, "Reinitna Torah ela lasis shalom ba'ilam." At the end of Hilchos Chanukah, the Rambam writes the whole purpose of Torah was only Lase Sholem Ba'elam, to make peace in the world. Like the Pasuk says, Hashem Oiz La'amayite and Hashem Yavarech Hasam Hashem. Because the whole uniqueness, why Hashem made a dir b'tachteinim, is because, again, what do people get excited about? New things. Right? SOS, people don't get excited about. So why did Eibishter make this concept of world? Because, like it says, why does Hashem, the Rambam says, why does Hashem like a Baal Tshuva? Why is a Baal Tshuva greater than a tzaddik? Because the Baal Tshuva changed his lifestyle. A tzaddik is goody from birth, straight on. A Baal Tshuva is a new person, and people like from new things. So that's in Chassidus expression, the purpose of the neshama coming into the world is really to become a Baal Tshuva. Neshama in Gan Eden is a tzaddik. What's the purpose of neshama coming down here? Is to become a Baal Tshuva, so to speak, to transform. Even tzaddikim have to do tshuva, to transform the world to Kedusha. That's an unbelievable accomplishment that the neshama accomplishes. So the whole reason why Hashem made the world is dira b'tachteinim, which are a contradiction of terms. There has to be, dira b'tachteinim means you're making peace between heaven and earth. Right? Like this. Shemaim nash Hashem like this, heaven belongs to God. Spirituality is spirituality, and physical is physical. What's the avoid of the Jew? To make peace. So therefore, every aspect of life is to make peace. It's between giver and receiver, which are also opposites. Giver is giver, and receiver is receiver. Kadosh Baruch Hu is giver, Malchus is receiver. You have to make the unity between two opposite things. When you unite two opposite things, it's a much, much greater accomplishment than united two things which are similar.
Is there any logic why met is respiratory, meaning heart, as opposed to seichel, brain?
Seichel is always dead.
No, the flag is
Seichel is always dead.
already finished.
Coldness represents death. Life represents warmth. What's the difference between chas v'shalom, a dead body and a living body? A dead body is cold, and a living body is warm. Right? So, death is basically the concept of coldness. Coldness is the concept of death. The heart is warmth. That's life. Got it? Okay. So he says, the mile is so H. What's the mile of H? Shebei mislav shemendavi mitzpashim davi. You cook food. V'nisapach haydei H musachem. What is the concept of fire? In fact, the malacha bishul on Shabbos is transforming something through fire. That's the malacha. Could go either way. Transforming something through fire is the malacha bishul. What's fire? Changing something's essence. He says, "Masha'enkim b'layesh." If you don't have fire, yishar mahusi arisha. It's going to stay what it was. You have a piece of meat that's raw, inedible. So without fire, it's going to stay where it is. Take raw beans, whatever. Yeah, it's going to be inedible because it's just raw. Fire makes it changing in a positive way that you can use it. Same thing through fire. You're able to transform the midas of the nefesh habamis, but at the same time it has to be in the positive way of eish, of fire. Has to be vayigbar libay, the breakay, the powerful, the power of doing what b'darkei Hashem, what Hashem wants us to do. And I'll give you in simpler language. Gaiva, they say there was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe. He said, he didn't sin because of gaiva. He didn't sin because of haughtiness. Anytime he wanted to sin, he said to himself, I am such a great chassid of the Alter Rebbe, it's below my dignity to sin. So that gaiva is a very powerful. No, it's productive. It's a good gaiva. Okay? He says the kanta v'yibba liba b'darkei Hashem means that somebody is trying to convince you to sin or to do something wrong, And you are saying, no, this is what needs to be done. I don't care what you say. Yeah? Guide in a negative way is also, I don't care what you say. I'm going to do what I want because that's me. And in a powerful way, it's the level of serving Hashem. But nevertheless, so even though you have the concept of fire, but you also have the mile of the Me'ach. Gadol Me'ed is very great. That causes the power and the strength, because the midas are based on the power of the Me'ach. A bardas, a person who is smart, I don't mean not academically smart, but a person who is a bardas, this person knows what they want and does what they want, that. He says that causes the power of the midas. So the power of the midas is based on the intellect. The more you understand what's right and wrong, the more you're going to love right versus wrong.
So the heart is under the control of the heart.
Me'ach shalt al-lev. If you're a human being, Me'ach shalt al-lev. If you're an animal, it's lev shalat ala me'ach. That's why it's brought down in Swarm, the word melech, king, stands for me'ach, lev, and kaved. Kaved is the liver, the lower parts of the body. First is me'ach, then lev, then kaved. If you have the lev before the me'ach, you're a lemachel. Lemach is a lamed memchav, lev, me'ach, kaved.
Kelev, no lev.
That says in summary, Kalev is Kulalev, because an animal, that's why is a person created in the image of Hashem? What do you see physically, a person created in the image of Hashem? Because an animal, the head and the body is on the same level. It means the head and the heart, or all the intellect and emotions are on the same level. A person, the Eibishter made a person straight, upward, horizontal, not vertical. The Hashem made a person vertical, not horizontal, because in Alukuz, the Seichel is higher than Midas. So therefore, the human head is higher than Midas. The Seichel is higher than Midas. A gorilla, it says, a monkey is a mamutza, in the intermediary between people and animals.
After 120, it becomes horizontal.
What?
After 120, it becomes horizontal.
Enochanami. That's after mission accomplished, though. So he says, "V'chochma Yosef Eretz, Shu b'chinas Ma'aseh, v'cheinu Anava Yikar Gadol." Therefore, Anava, like you said, why was Moshe Anav made Mikol Adam Asher Panei V'Adama? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was Chochma V'Atzilus. Chochma is complete level of bittul. Remember, the heart is Bina, which is understanding. That's already Yeshus. I understand. Chochma is bittul. He says that's why. The Anava is an Iker Gadol. In Yiddishkeit, being modest is a very big thing, because all the source of all Avedis is what I want. Good. But nevertheless, they're two opposites. Mayim ve'esh. The Me'ach is Mayim and the heart is Eish. There has to be peace between them. And Mamish. That they should be two inseparable friends. Now, how is that accomplished if, as their entities are created opposite? The answer is when they're both bottled to a higher cause. Because then you tap in to the level of Elokus, which is above both of them, and therefore both levels over there are united. So when a person taps into what Hashem wants, in other words, a healthy person is when every part of the body is bottled to the course, to the cause, which is to be alive. One goal. Therefore, a healthy person doesn't feel his head or stomach or heart or feet or anything. You don't feel yourself. What is the sin? What is sickness? All of a sudden, I have a headache, I have a heartache, I have a stomach ache, I have a foot ache, right? Whatever. Yeah? When you start feeling, the limb starts feeling itself as a separate entity, that's the illness. That's the source of illness. What's the chicken, what's the egg? We'll leave it to the philosophers. But the bottom line is, a healthy person doesn't feel himself. The head and the heart are opposite. How are they getting along, so to speak, in the body? How are they getting along? Because they both understand and they're both bottled to the cause, which is to be alive. So when you have an Avedas Hashem, the mind and the heart, Mayim and Eish, which are opposites, but when they both have a purpose of serving Hashem, so that level causes the peace between Eish and Mayim, because there's no Eish, there's no Mayim, it's the cause. Once there's the cause, that's when you have it. It's like any symphony, any sports team. If there's no unity, if any prayer says me, or any instrument says me, in a symphony, then you're out of whack. Because the concept is shalom, to be bottled to the cause. Therefore, just like there's Pamaya Shamayla and Pamaya Shamat. In the person, you also have peace in the higher and the lower. What's the higher?
People who have psychological issues, mental issues, their moach and their emotions, their heart is not in tune. They're not
Ask a psychiatrist. What are you asking me?
I mean, it seems like.
Huh?
It seems like.
I don't know.
We have two psychiatrists. They're not here anymore.
You tell me that means they don't need it? They don't need them here? Or they...
No, it made them so crazy.
Okay, so he says, that the merch should be shal controlling the heart. So now the Alter Rebbe is explaining this. We know that Veda has to be v'chayis rotze v'shev. There has to be the longing and the returning. Right? From one side, a person needs to... So the Alter Rebbe explains like this. The heart, the fire wants to leave the wick. Right? Because it wants to go back to its source. So fire, the heart, that's the level of the longing. Moyach is mayim, that comes down. That's the level of shuv. So in Avedas Sa'adam, the heart is the level of the longing talukus, and the moyach is the level of shuv, of the returning to realization that needs to be in the body. The same thing V'yigbal Amar, as the Gemara says, Talmud Chacham tzarich liyaz be'shminis shebeshminis. According to one opinion, that Talmud Chacham needs an eighth of gaiva. Gaiva is a terrible thing. But that gaiva is not in a negative way. That gaiva is, what Hashem wants is what I want. So there's no me. But that's because the person is so bottled to Hashem, it's not my gaiva, it's Hashem's gaiva. It's Hashem's inyan. You have that, you can go crazy from this. When Rashbi said, Rav Shimon Yochai said, okay, if there's two tzaddikim in this world, he says to his son, it's me and you. If there's one, it's me. And then Rashbi said, Man Pnei Odin, the Zohar says, Rashbi said, Man Pnei Odin, who's the face of God? Dor Rashbi. So Rav Shimon Yochai said this. Who is the face of God? It's me. Rav Shimon Yochai. Yeah? Then you have the Gemara at the end of the Seit, that's Rashbi. Then you have the end of the Gemara Seita, where the Mishnah says, when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi died, Batal Anova, v'Yiras Chet. Yeah? And humility died and Yiras Chet died. So Yosef said, hey, don't say Anova died because I'm here. I'm an Onav. And Rav Nachman said, don't say Yiras Chet so you can't know, because I'm here. Now how can a guy in the world say, Rav Yosef say, hey, don't say that, change the Mishnah. The Mishnah says when Rabbi died, another modesty died. No, I'm here, I'm modest. I mean, the obvious question is, you can't have greater gaiva. How can the Rashbi say, Maim Pnei Yodim? So the Rebbe explains in a Sikha, these people were so bittul to Hashem. There was no Rashbi. There was no existence of Rashbi. Rashbi was Hashem. Tzadikim Daimim Lebeirim. When Rashbi said, Man Pnei Yodim da Rashbi, there was no gaiva of me, Rashbi, saying, you know. Because again, another doesn't mean you don't know who you are. So Rashbi explains, you know.
How come you didn't disappear? When you become totally, you cannot exist.
No, that's not what it means. Bittul doesn't mean you don't exist. Bittul means my existence is Hashem. Bittul doesn't mean I don't exist, I'm a nothing, therefore I don't exist. I don't exist as a separate entity out of Hashem. I am the existence of Hashem. I'm not God, by the way. In other words, if you ain't Mavadai, there's nothing but God. That means this table is Hashem. Not a table. Ain't Mavadai, right? There's only if somebody bows down to this table, they're going to get killed for Avodah Zarah. But it's Hashem, right? But that's in reality. Now down the area, it's a table. A person that would, when the Alter Rebbe said, I don't see the beam of the building, I see the Dvar Hashem, the power of Hashem in the beam. Trust me, he didn't bang into the beam. He didn't see the beam, so he banged into the beam. No, that's not what it means. It doesn't mean a person disappears. It means he feels, not says. It's very easy to say, he feels that his existence is only Hashem.
I don't think we can understand. We can strive to it for it, but I don't think we can grasp such a knowledge, such a level.
Of course we can't. You know why? Because we think we are something.
No matter how
That's why normal people have a problem with it. They have a problem with it. How can a guy say, I'm modest, and that's the ultimate modesty? It depends who is the I. The Ika Ano, who's the I? In English, my father used to say this many times. In English, I is always capitalized. Capital I, yeah? In Hebrew, the word for I is ani, which is the letters ayin. So in secularism, I is the big me, you know how great I am, you know who I am. And in Yiddishkeit and Torah, ani means ayin, you're nothing. But by the way, this bittul is not for me to do it to you. That you don't exist and you don't exist. It's that I don't exist. And not chas v'shalom I don't exist. My existence is one with Hashem. Can we get it? We should, because in reality we have a neshama that's completely bottled to Hashem. Do we get the concept of Atzilus or even Malachim we don't get? But the neshama gets it.
Yesh me'ayin doesn't mean ayin is nothing.
Correct.
So this ayin is...
Ayin means it's bottled.
Right.
So he's saying you need to have the Rotz and the Sheiv. The Rotze is the longing that you don't want to be you. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in Perek Yud Ches, when he speaks about, when he speaks about the fire, yeah, he says, a fire always goes upward. Why? Because it wants to leave, go back to its source. Yeah? So the Alter Rebbe says, down here, the fire is in existence. And then when it leaves, it's non-existence. It doesn't make sense. Why should an entity want to become no entity? Why should an existence? He says, Kahu tiva. This is the nature. Nature is not logical. You can't explain why is the nature of water to go down and up. Yeah, you could say gravity and that, but why is that? So the Alter Rebbe explains why is Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam? Why is Hashem Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam? Because just like the fire wants to leave, so science said because it's lighter than air, it wants to go up. Torah says because the source of fire is Tachas Galgalei Yoreach, under the rotation of the moon, and therefore the nature of everything go back to its source. The Neshama's nature wants to go back to its source. That's the level of Ratzon. At the same time, the Neshama realized that's not what the Eibishter wants. He didn't put me in a body that I should leave it. Bochai bohem.
But Yesh feels good.
Everything feels good, but then you suffer from it later. If a person really loves a certain food, okay, but when they eat it, they get a stomachache for a week. Correct?
Yes.
So a fool will eat it, and an intelligent person won't eat it. That doesn't mean the intelligent person doesn't like it as much as the fool. He likes it as much as the fool. But he looks at the now it's enjoyable. If it's enjoyable now, that's what you do. And the Chacham sees, yeah, enjoyable now. But why should, what do they say, a minute on the lips? What's the expression? It's forever on the hips, something like that, yeah? Okay. So then it's gonna make you sick, or get fat, or whatever. So that's the difference between a Chacham and a fool. It feels good. Of course it feels good. But it's the temporary feeling good for 70 years, 120 years. And then it's miserable.
Very good. Yes, you can feel it. Ein is in a trust form.
Yeah. So that's why the Berditchever said to the Eibishter that you're not fear. He says, all the pleasures of this world you put in front of us. Gan Eden you put in the books. Put the Taivas in the books and put Gan Eden in front of us, you'll see we won't sin. Why didn't they, it's a very smart point. Why didn't Hashem do it though? Because then it's worthless. You're not going to make a dira b'tachtenim. You're not going to become a shutaf ala Kodesh Baruch Hu. You're not going to become a partner with Hashem in creation. Yeah? If it's easy. Nothing in life is easy. Nothing valuable in life is easy. It's not.
Even ice cream?
Huh?
Even ice cream?
Depends how long you have to stand in line. You have to stand an hour in line. It's too foolish. No, but that's the Alter Rebbe. There has to be the Rav of shape. Yeah. V'imkein or another tzarich is harbe yesem v'yesem mebchin vayig balibe. Therefore, the concept of another modesty has to be infinitely more than the vayig balibe. V'zeh shomer Hazal amispal. Therefore, the Chazal say amispal when a person daven Shmoneh Esrei tzarich l'chrei, when by the place that you have to bow, right? Ad sheyira iser keneged libe, that he can see an iser, which is a coin called an iser. Okay, opposite his heart. He said, but why does the Gemara use the expression Isser? He says, Isser, Lashon Kesher. The word Isser means a binding, like it says in this week's Parsha. Va'asra Isar, B'veisa v'ya benorah, binding the daughter, right? Va'asra Isser means, like Asr, we learn bound, connected. It's Kesher. What does it mean? L'kasher b'chinas hamshach mi'amerech ha'lelev. What does it mean? You should bow down until, okay? So simply you bow down that the head and the heart are on the same level. But he says, what does it mean in the spiritual sense? That Isser means this coin, but it means the binding that when you bow, the bittul of Shmoneh Esrei is causing the oneness between the head and the mind. They're both on the same level. Both things go together. that the mind should control the heart. Then, when the mind controls the heart, then you have both things. Then you have the mile of the head and the mile of the heart. Like this, the head has its mile and the heart has its mile. Now you connect them both together. You got both.
Wow.